On recording. You're good to go. Okay, so welcome to class 3. It is the listing presentations you're prepared for class. Number 3, as I said, we've got 3 more to go after today, which is exciting. Listings, as we know, are the other element or the other kind of bucket of things that we do in real estate to represent clients. Last week we talked about buyers. This week we're talking about sellers. Sellers, it's more finesse, more, I guess, creativity that we need to deploy with dialogues as well to get our message across, to get what we're looking for, to accomplish the, the end result of getting a listing presentation signed. Of course, my phone's going off there, but I'll just turn it upside down so you can see that. And I can't see it, I can't be distracted, right? So today we're obviously going to follow the course material that we have. But I've had Matthew send you a couple of other sheets today that we'll look at, dive a little bit into, and we'll do some of my own content as well. But I think we're going to start right off the bat with the top part of the course. And I can write still on this screen, right? We'll be able to in just a minute. Okay. Okay, so remember last week I talked about, and the week before even, and I think I got it over here, right? Yep. Am I off camera now? I'll move it. Okay. So I talked about last week surveys and the week before that are done about why do people hire you? And of course, you see this right here. It has that as negotiation skills. As I said, every survey, research paper I've ever read about realtors through the NAR Association of Korea, it's always in the top 3 of things that they're looking for. So if you look at today, we're doing listing presentations. What are some of the negotiation skills you think you're going to need to be at the top of your game dealing with the seller? I'll give you the first one. Commission. And what do we call commission again?
Fee.
We call it the fee. But of course, the consumer calls it commission all day long. So would you agree with me that the commission conversation, the fee conversation is going to happen regardless of who you're going to go visit? Unless you're going to list your grandparents' house, you're probably going to have that conversation. We all agree with that? Perfect. What's something else that you're going to be negotiating with the seller?
Price.
Price. Who said that? Teresa said that. So it's price. Price is the other good thing, big thing, sorry, that you're going to be dealing with. Price of the property. Now, if you have a listing and you've done your CMA, and the value you've come up with is, say, $2 million, but the seller wants $2.7 million, do you have a bona fide listing there? Probably not. Maybe if we waited 10 years, we could get 2.7 for the property, but today it's unlikely that we're going to be able to secure that. So this is your negotiation skills, you with the seller. Everyone's tracking with that, right? What's number 3? Yeah.
Would service be one of them?
Service is what you're going to be using to justify your fee to them, right? And we're going to go a little bit into that. I'm going to show you at the very end of the program my fee model service that I used to use in my business. And so it's obviously antiquated. It's like 15 years old, but it's a good roadmap for you to create that fee model system for you. So this one here would be negotiating offers and paperwork. That's the other third thing that you're going to be looking at. Okay. The next question there, next is strategy. So strategy, we have essentially 2 strategies. Do I do the driver's thing? Yeah. We have 2 strategies. Do we know what the 2 strategies are for listing? Yeah.
Would time be one of them?
That's right.
Like time and day, like what day and time you would want to list it? So for example, if it's like before a long weekend or after a long weekend and stuff?
Yeah, so that falls into this type of strategy, an aggressive strategy, because you're putting a time cap on, today we're going to list it on Friday and we're going to hold offers off until Thursday, right? So we're going to postpone offers to that date with typically a very aggressive pricing model and structure, right? Okay. So then the other would be, if it's not aggressive, it's traditional. What does a traditional listing look like? Yeah.
Correctly.
Yeah, you go at market value, you put it to the MLS, and you let the MLS at its leisure have realtors show the property and actually execute and send offers in, right? So that's your traditional. So those are basically your two big strategies that you've got in listings. Make sense? Got a question?
More of an example of how you would handle a particular situation. Shay was at a listing presentation last weekend, and her seller had the following expectations. No fee to be paid on the sell, only 2.5 to the buyer agent, staging and other expenses to be covered by the agent, and only 0.5% back on the buy.
What?
How do you handle that? How would you interact with your client after hearing that?
I'd say goodbye. Honestly, that's not a bona fide listing. That's even, I wouldn't even classify that as being charity because this is going to cost you. This is not something that you're going to want to build a business around. And here's what I really want to warn you guys about. So I'll talk about it now as opposed to near the end of the class. When you start discounting your fee and you become known for that and your database of referrals, because remember, our track is to get to a referral-based database, right? We talked about that in class 1. If you start doing stuff like that, they're going to refer you to people based upon what you've just done. And if all you've done is just discounted your service to the fact that you're not actually going to be remunerated, like you're not going to at 0.5 for a buying side and you're going to pay for staging, what do you think the basic staging cost is today? Throw out a number. Yeah.
2,000.
2.
3.
I'd say 3 at least.
I said 2,000.
For a condo, 5 for a house.
I think 3. If you're doing it yourself, maybe, and you're not hiring somebody, maybe you can get away with 2. But
I'll give you the number, guys.
yeah. But so you're already out of pocket $3,000. And as I said, I gave Matt that beautiful picture and sheet of me in 1998. Did I already seen that yet? Okay, great. This is a sheet of me when I was 28 years old. I didn't have any gray hair. And I used to use that sheet. I found it last night in a whole bunch of my paperwork. And I thought I'll bring it in and we'll have some giggles at my expense, which is fine. But I used to actually track down what my cost was per hour and use that as part of my listing presentation. When I share this stuff with you, you can use it, you can not use it, it's your choice, but I'm basically an open book. I don't sell anymore. And quite frankly, at this stage of my career, I have no intention to go back into selling. I'll finish my career out as a leader in organized real estate. So I don't mind giving you, everything that I used to use. And that, like I said, I stumbled upon it last night, but I was going through old folders. I'm like, oh man, people are gonna love to see this picture of me. I've already taken some razzing from, Stuthers and Jeff Slideham's here. He thought I looked like Hugh Jackman, Wolverine. I don't see it, but
Oh, I can see it.
okay.
A little bit.
I didn't see it. So next is, did that answer Shay's question?
I had slightly misunderstood the 0.5. His client wanted the 0.5 to be rebated back to him, and the agent keeps the 2%. So he basically wants a kickback on the buy
On the corporate.
and pay nothing to him on the sell.
So listen, if you're going to discount your listing commission and they're going to do this kind of thing, but I'm going to buy with you and you're going to make it up there, don't ever fall into that trap. Does anybody know what the trap is there?
I'll buy it.
They might not buy. So if you're going to discount anything, don't discount your listing because your real capital expenses come out of what? Listings, not the buy side. Right? So if you're going to do something like that, take the full fee. Sure, 5% is my fee for this. And when you buy, I will rebate based upon what happens. Right? Do not take it off your listing side. Network of suppliers getting a house ready. So who are your suppliers? Who is your book of partners that you should be looking at? And I'll give you the first one because it is the most important one. MTG is mortgage, right? Who else do you think fits in that group of suppliers for you that you need to have deep relationships with, that you know them, like them, and trust them, and that when you send them your client, that it's like sending them to yourself. It's never going to fail. Yeah. Lloyd, 100%.
Lawyer. What else? Who? Stager, 100%.
On average, staged properties sell, and this is an average, between 1 to 5% more than a non-staged property. 1 to 5%. There are lawsuits that have occurred in the United States. I'm sure that we're going to have them up here in Canada. There's been lawsuits where realtors have not recommended. All you need to do is recommend it. You don't have to have them do it, but have not recommended staging, and sellers have sued realtors for that non-recommendation and have won in the United States of America. Yes, there was a lawsuit there. On round numbers, it's not, these are not the true numbers, but I'll say seller sold for $1 million. The staged property, which was by virtue exactly the same, sold for, we'll say, $1.2 million, all within the 40-day window. The non-staged property owner found out about that because it's in the same neighborhood, sued their realtor for not recommending stages, and they won. So this is on your list. Yeah, we had a question from
Howie says it's a home inspector.
absolutely. Home inspector.
What else? Who else?
Cleaners. I love it. 100%. Cleaners.
Painting.
Perfect. I'm going to say painting, and I'm going to put handy person as well, right? Contractors, absolutely.
Photographer.
100%. Photo. What did I just do there? Virtual people, right? Virtual tour. Yeah, virtual like video. A lot of these companies now, they offer a brilliant service. They'll do measurements for you as well. The measurement, we'll touch a little bit upon that later in the course about how you get square footage and some of the landmines that exist out there in our space as far as quoting, from different sources, the square footage. So yeah, so you could have like Planet is a name of an actual company that does a plan, PLAN-IT. They're an engineering company. They go in and do the measurements. When I sold one of my properties, I used them. And it's literally engineers that go in, and it is a very high level, detailed square footage of your home, which is fantastic. Any others that you can think of?
Moving company.
Moving company, thank you.
Howie says private lenders, but I'm assuming that could also go into your mortgage category.
Now I'm going to use that as an extra. Private lenders.
And what about transfer of utility providers?
Okay, tell me more about that. What do you mean?
It's just, you're gonna have to get your utilities transferred.
Okay.
Who would,
Okay.
who could you recommend to assist with that?
So I would call that maybe a concierge type of service. So if you have a team right now, you may have somebody dedicated in your team that could be that concierge service. There are third-party companies that do exist in that space, and I'm trying to think of the one when I was president of the board we partnered with, and then RBC bought them out. Yeah, what was their name again? Do you remember? Anyways, they were a third-party concierge type of service.
They closed down.
MoveSnap. It was MoveSnap. Thank you. Yeah, there is a new. The creator of MoveSnap, who sold it to RBC, and then I guess they imploded it. The founder, creator of the original, is developing or has developed a new solution that's very much the same. I don't know if it's been launched yet, but you can do that. You could hire, somebody on the side, pay them, $20 an hour, $25 an hour to do a concierge service like that. We used to at Royal LePage, we used to have a service like that embedded right into the national network. And I used to use it, until they made some huge gaffes. I had a client of mine, his name was Michael Reese, I remember, and his dad's name was Michael Reese. And so on the day that they flipped over all the services for my client, Michael Reese, they shut down all the services at the dad, Mike Reese's home, which was not good because my client lived at home with his parents. And so, of course, this happens on a Friday afternoon, end of June. And so you have no cable, you have no air conditioning, you have no hydro, everything's off. And so I was not a happy camper about that. I'm going to give you a bonus one
to think about. How about like having a partnership or a go-to hotel that you can actually have clients go to in the event they need to have a roof over their head for whatever situation you may be running into. You know, they're bridge financing the property, they haven't taken it over yet, and so they need a roof over their head. Or here's something that when we were going through the most craziest times in 2021, who was in our rural business during that? Insane times. We had realtors that were having their clients as part of their fee model to get that 5%, part of their fee model, that go to a hotel for 4 or 5 days, let me do unfettered showings of your property. So they're not living in the home during the showing, so we could maximize the amount of people coming through. Because back then we were talking, 100, 150 people looking at properties in 5 or 6 days. Now, if they're living in the home, it's a lot harder to, right? So part of the model was you go live there at the hotel, they cover the expenses, but then you rebate those expenses back upon closing. Makes sense? I thought it was a brilliant idea for our agents at that time. Yeah.
Storage options for decluttering.
Storage, yes.
And potentially like a garbage company to deliver a bin.
Garbage. Well, I talked about that in class 1, right? Where you are going into these homes where there's 30, 40 years worth of living accumulation in the home. And so you're going to want to have this in your back pocket, companies to do that. What's the big one? 1-800-GOT-JUNK, I think, is a big one that's out there. So these are great things to think about, because typically we only think about them when we're asked about them. So now you've got the opportunity to start developing some of these relationships with them. Okay. Any others you can think of? No? Yes.
Like, when you listing the specific market, like feng shui specialist, for example.
Okay. Yep. So I'll call feng shui. And what was the other one that I've heard people are doing now? There's another.
I've actually seen it recently, and they provide like a whole report.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
That it's feng shui properly.
Yeah. 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 There is another also. It's not feng shui, but it's in the same kind of vein.
That tool says Vastu, right there, Vastu.
Oh, I've never heard of that one. What is that? We have a couple of realtors. The one I'm trying to think of, we have a couple of them that are certified in whatever that is, and I think it's in the Hindu community.
Yeah, it's like the doors. I can't feel like in the south or something. I encountered it just on a showing once,
Okay.
and I was like, Seinfeld. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I learned from that, and then yeah, it threw me off. But yeah,
There you go. There you go.
And soup, what is it called?
The other one was Vastu. I had not heard of that. That's not the one I was told about.
Basic principles of Vastu Shastra. Rooms of your house should be preferably square or rectangular. Rooms should be airy, well lit, bright, and clean. Center of the house should be an empty space.
Yep. Yeah.
It just has its own little rule system for how to set up your home.
Awesome.
Main entrance of your house should be northeast, northeast, or west,
Okay.
as these directions are considered fortunate.
Very cool. Awesome. I know 8's a good number in the Chinese community. I know that's a good number. Could you bring up my commissionectomy stuff? So we're gonna go off the grid here, unless we have any more that we want to share out there. I love the list. There was a couple I've not heard before, but this is fantastic. If you haven't already got these suppliers, these relationships, please, I encourage you to go and invest and find out if you can add people like that to your team, because this is really part of your team. Okay? Cleaning, yeah. Duct cleaning, yes.
Don't call me.
I only have geese cleaning. Yeah, I don't have duct cleaning. No. And I get those calls.
Oh, what was the name of the square foot measuring company you mentioned?
Planet, PLAN-IT. I use them on my own home. They're professional engineers. They came in, it took a couple of hours. They did the outside and the inside. Of course, the inside is your correct square foot measurement. And, well, I might as well talk about it now. So MPACT is the kind of go-to that a lot of people use to get these square foot measurements. Let me caution you as highly as I can, as seriously as I can. That data is not accurate, notoriously inaccurate. Here's the reality of what MPACT's data is. About 1/3 may be accurate, 1/3 is low, and 1/3 is high. Does anybody know where MPAC gets its square foot data from? Yes.
Isn't the average square footage of the whole neighborhood?
Nope.
From the pyramid?
They may get some from the permits. Yes.
Builders?
Yep. They get them from builder floor plans. Builder floor plans, just as a FYI. So I sold new homes too for a couple years up in Brampton. The Discovery project at Beauvert in the 410s on the northeast corner. I don't know if everybody knows that. I sold about 500 homes in there from 99, 2000, 2001, and still sold real estate on the like residential real estate. They will take their measurements, not from how we would. So the measurements we take include this thing called studs and drywall, right? So you're actually missing probably 3 or 4 inches. And if you measure that around, like that's a lot of square footage. They take it from like the finished walls, right? So they'll grab it from there. Oddly enough, they'll grab it from advertisements from realtors in the local newspapers or online. So the MPAC does not go into the house. They do not physically measure. So when we think that we are getting an accurate number when we use MPAC, we're not. And if you're going to use that data, MPAC data, please, as a disclaimer, say as per MPAC, right? Because if you're going to use their data, that's without doing that disclaimer, that's as if you did the measurement, okay? Now, the likelihood is you're going to be okay for 2/3 of the scenario. You're going to be okay if it's the accurate one, and I would dare say you're going to be okay if it's the one where the number is less than what it really is, right? If they're saying it's 2,000, the house is really 2,300. I don't think the home buyer is going to have a claim against you for the extra 300 square feet they got, right? Okay, so we're going to do a little bit. Yes.
One question, roughly how much does the Planet service cost?
I'm going to say I was about $400 or $500 to get that done. Now, so what they do is they generate a complete report for you, and they will actually draw out in a CAD design, like computer animated design, I think it's called, of your property, basement, main floor, second floor, and in mine, I had them do the outside as well, right? So there's extras you can bolt it. Now, I did mine in 2017, so I would bank on it being a little more expensive, but 4 or 5 was, I think, my number. Yeah. Was there another question? I thought? No. Okay, so this is off of the grid here. It's not in your workbook, and it's a little exercise that I call like commissionectomy. Does everybody know what an ectomy is? Brainectomy, whatever. Oh, yeah, exactly. Right? We're going to dissect something. So we're going to dissect the commission reality before we dive into the actual listing part, because I want you to understand what happens financially when you start with your, for argument's sake, say 5% is our goal. And we're going to look at what happens at 5, 4.5, and 4%. And I know, probably we're having people doing a lot less than 4 these days too. As Shay has shared with us, they don't want to pay Shay anything, quite frankly, on that sell side. So this is just a high level, just as a reminder, I think we provide this in the book that you get from Design, right? The pre-printed one that, as I said last week, for buyers, you can get one. And thanks to Teresa, who's in the back room, shy, she doesn't want to come on the camera, but she helped us kind of move forward to make sure that everybody gets what they want as far as the quality and what, kind of customizing, I guess, what you want to see in your particular situation. We have one for the sellers. All you need is the name of the seller and the address of the property. We'll print something like that out. And what I would do is use that as a backup or collateral piece to your own documents that you're going to create. And I brought in one that I used to use myself. I'll actually want to send it around now. But this was something that I used to put together. And I would give this actually with the binder to the sellers as a gift behind. I'll leave it to Thomas. You can share that around. You should have some of that you've given out. That's the seller's pre-list handbook. Okay, good. So this is very simple, basic stuff. Half of the fee, if we're 5%, is going to the co-op broker, so that we're really dealing with the other 2.5% if we got it at 5%. So we got in there business expenses. What would be business expenses for us? Oh. What happened there, Matt?
Take your pen, take your pen.
What are business expenses?
Yes.
Gas. Love it. Do you love paying the $1.50, $1.60 a liter? I don't either. What was you, Diana, what'd you say? Stager. It could be, yep. Ads, sure. Okay,
Splits?
that's already right here.
Oh.
Yeah, actually, you're right. Realtor net, yeah, so split.
Probably, right?
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly. Video, yeah. Okay,
Dinners, would you want to or no?
dinners.
How is this stuff? Let's take it out.
Wine and malt.
Not in an individual situation, it wouldn't be, but in your global marketing plan, sure, I would say that, yeah. Let me give you some other ones that we're not even looking at. How about your license? How about your insurance?
$2,000.
How about your board fees? How about Korea? Korea,
I know, right? Once you start adding.
how you feeling?
Ouch.
You forget those things. You forget that those are real expenses for you to operate your business. And they should be a discussion point when you're talking about your fee. How about if you were like Emilio and did some extracurricular, education, right? So you did some education. Take a look on Harvard's website and take a look at, because they offer that program. He's done it 3 times, 3 different ones. Take a look what the cost is for that. We're not talking $1,000 here. Like big money, right? Yeah. Talking like 15,000 per time. So those are your business expenses that you've got embedded in there, right? Taxes. If I had a green pen, I would just do a puking sign right now, but listen, we pay taxes in Canada. It is a necessary evil. There are a lot of good things that we do benefit from that. There is a lot of waste in that, but it is one of the prices we pay to live in the Great White North of Canada, right? So taxes, that's all I'll say about that. Then you're left with your realtor net. This is what makes you guys happy. Okay, that's your realtor net. So that's just the general stuff. When you're talking to your clients, when you're using our workbook stuff, you should break that down with them just so that they have an appreciation of what it looks like from your perspective. If you go to the next slide. Now, before I do the commissionectomy, I got to ask the question. The first question I asked everybody 3 weeks ago in my first class, the planning. What are your whys for getting in your profession? Yeah.
Money.
Money. Okay. Love it. Money. I think we're all here for that to some degree, right? Some of us are more aggressively looking for money and others are, in the back end, whatever comes, right? So money for sure. What else? Pardon me?
Freedom of time.
Freedom. Freedom. What else?
My own bus.
Your own boss. What did I say about that 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago? Some of us should fire ourselves. Right? What else do we got? This is why you're getting up in the morning and driving in a snowstorm and then going out and showing people in snowstorms, which I used to do. I'm sure you have done that, right? I remember showing a farm up in East Garifraxon. Does everybody know where that area is? Yeah, that's north of Shelburne. Okay. And I was driving up, I'm going to say it was either 24 or 26, I can't remember. And the snow drifts were that high. Like I was driving, thank God I had a SUV. So I was driving, I could see over the snow drift. Cars couldn't. The roof of cars. And this was a narrow 2-lane that was plowed out with the side like that. And I went out and showed a property. Because we do that crazy stuff because we are invested in our clients. We want to have a positive outcome. Yes, I did. Not the one I showed. No. Not the one I showed. So this is what motivates you to go and do those crazy things that people would say, really? You went out and took your life in your own hands and risked whatever? Yeah, I do that. I want you to cement this now, your whys, because what you're going to be doing when we do this commission ectomy, there's going to be a thing called exchange happening. An exchange. As you decide to give away your fees, you're exchanging your whys for the seller's whys, why you should be reducing your fee. You understand that? Just burn that into your brain as we now go through the next stage. If you can. Oh, I sound like we're in here. Where are we going? Okay, so it's a commission activity. Now, this is not the average sale price of a house. When I first did this in 2008 is when I created this these slides. That was about the average sale price of a home. What's the average sale price of a home today on Trev? 1.1, right? Oh, 1.1. So you can just, in your mind's eye, increase that number. But I like to use this because it reminds me of 16 years ago when I actually first came up with this. So we're going to do 10 transactions. As a realtor, it's a very successful business if you're going to do 10 transactions today. That's $1 million per property. That's $10 million in real estate at 2.5%. That's a pretty awesome business, right? 10 transactions at $400K nets you out at the 2.5. So this is the listing side of the 5%, right? So we got 5%, we got 2.5, and we got 2.5. We're all following me, right? So this is the listing side, LS side. So in that model, 2.5%, 10 transactions is 100 grand. 100 grand back 2008. That was a, pardon me? No, your gross income, your GCI would be 100,000 on 10 transactions at 400, right? That was a very good target to try to earn. It's still a good target. Like, who wouldn't be happy with making $100,000? I think you should probably double that number today. But 100,000, we're not going to be upset about that either, okay? So in a healthy business, you get $100,000. We're just going to impute 35% of expenses. You can change that yourself. If your expenses are 25%, put in 25%. I'm just showing you a model that you can work with to figure out where your business is. And this is the healthy business, okay? So then we're left with $65,000. Now, these are all tax deductible expenses. Work with your accountant. Tax deductible. Deductible. I'm not a tax accountant. I'm not a CA. So you go to your professional and get what you can legitimately deduct and what you cannot. I heard some very creative things people used to deduct. I know I'm very conservative. I do not want Revenue Canada calling me, and I'm sure you don't either. Okay. I'm putting in just a generic 32% income tax, right? So this is your federal income tax. This is your provincial income tax. This is the HST, all this kind of stuff that you pay on things. So we're putting 32%. You can put lower, you can put higher. It's up to you. So we're at 20,000. So your net income after expenses in a healthy business in this model is $44,200. It's not 100 grand, right? We're talking your net. Now you can play with the numbers and maybe you can get your net to 60,000, 62,000. But you're really playing within a pretty fixed boundary system of what we operate in because of our tax system and code in Canada, right? We all agree with that? That's a healthy business. Anybody have any questions on how that model works? Again, change that number if you want, okay? Change this number if you want, up or down. Your call. But the exercise is for you to figure out individually at a micro level your situation. Does that make sense? Okay. Next slide, Matt. So that's healthy. This is now vulnerable. A vulnerable transaction system at 2%. Same metrics, 10 transactions, 400 grand. Instead of $100,000, we're making $80,000 in that model. Still pretty, like, people are not going to be upset about $60,000, right? Okay. We're using the same 35%. You change that if you like. We're using the same 32% income tax. What are you left with in net income is $35,360. What was the last slide again? 44,000. So we've dropped down about $9,000 loss. And here's what I always hear realtors say. How many years have I been in this again? Next week is my 30th anniversary as a full-time broker. It's 32 years with my license. I got my license in 92, but I was still in school. But next week is my 30th year anniversary as a full-time broker.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Let's celebrate.
I'm in Ottawa next week, but I'm back here for Friday for you guys. Don't worry, I'm coming home early. I'm on stage at the AREA conference doing a session on Tressa. My claim to fame now is I replaced Magic Johnson's session. He had to reschedule and they put me and Ray Ferris in his place. And so Ray Ferris wants to come out dribbling a basketball. I'm a hockey player. I don't know if I could do that. So Magic Johnson's taking my spot on Thursday. I'm taking his on Wednesday. So what I've heard over and over again when realtors will go and cut their commission is, well, Mike, all they need to do is one more deal to make up the difference. And when you think about it, you know, $9,000, you know, we're talking, you know, a $10,000 a fee here. It sounds like in your head, yeah, you're right. It is only one deal that I have to make up, right? Like it just makes kind of sense. But the reality is you need 3 more deals to make that up. Why? Because your net profit in the first slide was 44, divide that by 10, that's $4,000 we'll call it as a net income, right? So when you're looking at your net number on a vulnerable business, you need 3 of those deals to make up that difference. Does that make sense to everybody? So now we're thinking, what's my whys again? I want to make money. I want freedom. I want to be my own boss. I want to plan for retirement. I want to fund my kids' education. I want to go on vacation. I want to buy a new car. I want to buy a vacation property. All these whys that you're doing, you now have to remember what you're giving up in those whys. And what was the word I said? There's going to be an exchange. You're exchanging that now for somebody else. Okay, tracking? And that's vulnerable. Now let's go to the next slide. This is terminal. What does the word terminal mean in the medical world? It means we're not probably getting out of the hospital. Okay, we're end of life. Okay. And I'm using that language just so that it cements at a very high level psychologically with you what you're doing. So this is at 1.5%. In our world, that's a total 4% commission, right? People take 4% commissions all day long. Now, here's the thing, not to be anti-competitive. Every commission is negotiable. So we're not here saying that there's a standard commission fee or anything like that. You can do whatever you like. You and your seller, you can figure out what that looks like. Nobody's interfering with you, okay? But you need to understand what that exchange is for your business. So in this model, instead of 100,000 or 80,000, our GCI is now 60,000. That's our gross commission. Again, we're using the same numbers, 35%, 32%. Your net income now in that model is 26,120. Now we were 44,000 in the healthy. We were how much again? 33-ish in the vulnerable, I think. 36. Okay. And now we're down to 26. Again, Mike, all I need to do is 1 or 2 more deals to make that up. In this model, you actually need to do 7 deals to get back to your net profit. Everybody understand how that works, right? It's not 1, it's not 2, it's 7 deals to get yourself back to a healthy business. So now that I've disappointed and scared everybody and shocked everybody with real numbers, you know, hopefully you can go away today thinking about those decisions you're making in those micro moments of time to cut your commission. And you know, the cutting commission thing is not new at all. Do you think I dealt with cutting commission as a realtor? Every time I went into a home sale, yeah.
Have you cut your commission?
So I did once, and I'll talk about that next class, but I'll say it sure. It was a situation where there was a terminal illness in the family. And so I did it as a goodwill gesture for the family, right? I'm not going to cut my commission because somebody, you know, has a lifestyle of gambling or being, you know, doing nonsense. And now they want me to bail them out because of something like that. But in that case, it was a terminal situation and I did, right? Yes.
One more thing, how do you approach when a buyer would say, I want a rebate or I want a cashback?
That's a good question. Can we put that one to the back of the, so that, because that's a whole conversation. But I'm gonna also share with you, the last slide we're sharing, I think is my fee model system. Don't show it now, but that's gonna be at the end. I'm gonna show you the actual part of my presentation. You can use it, you can not use it, you can criticize it, I don't care. But that's how I actually dealt with my negotiations. Yeah.
Keep down the background chatter because the mic is very, very sensitive. It picks up voices from the back of the room. So one voice at a time only, please.
Yeah. So in this model here, we are now doing this exchange. We're either exchanging our Ys for their Ys. In that case, where it's a goodwill gesture because of a health situation, I was happy to do it, right? But, and then there's also, you know, you're gonna buy it, you're gonna sell. You'll see that on my fee model system, how I break all that stuff down. Was that helpful for people just to get you thinking, you know, where you should be? Now, we're gonna have some laughs here in the next slide, because Matt's gonna pull up my 1998 picture with a little thing I came up with back then. This was the year I joined Royal LePage, actually. So I worked for a small family company. There, look at that young guy, 1998. Oh, what are you doing there?
Full screening it.
Oh, full screen. Okay. So this was something I came up with. Why? Because not every seller, the vast majority of sellers, are not in the fee-based, commission-based business, right? Most of them are on most of them would have these things called a salary or a per hour, right? So to get them to think about me and me in a fee-based model system where I'm not on a salary, I'm not getting paid by hour, I wanted them to think about what my investment in time is with them. So I came up with this. Again, I found it late last night. I forgot I even had this thing over the years, but I used and I had some disclaimers about how these numbers all came up. Based upon an $85,000 annual income. Now back then that was 1998. 85,000. The average realtor was probably 25,000, maybe 30,000 back in those days was the average realtor income. Back then I was what's called President's Gold, which was north of 110,000 back in 1998, and I went up to levels and stuff like that. But this was for me to break down. These were these kind of tasks that I had, descriptions of tasks, the allotted time, and then imputed my value, what the cost was. And in this scenario, it was $5,100, right? So Matt has sent you this copy. Whether you choose to use something like that as part of your package, go for it. I will, you know, preface to say, please practice dialogues behind this so that you're not going in and pulling this out for the first time and then you're what is this all about? Know what you're going to say with this information. And I found it to be very helpful because it was able to, for these two sectors, they could relate to what I'm doing now. Because it's like, I've punched a clock to come help you, but I'm not actually getting paid to do that. But there is a exchange of my time, energy, and money to do that. And so for them to see that, I thought it was very helpful for them. So hopefully, you know, helpful for you as well. Okay, any questions on that one? Go back to the ragged one. Regular? Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go to this stuff here. So I got, can you move that thing over there? Or is that blocking like the screen? Yeah. So you're sitting here in the office or you're sitting at home or you're driving your car and you get a call and it's from a prospective seller listing you're going to go to, right? Has anybody ever received those calls? Yeah. So on those calls, now if you're sitting at the office or you're at home, you're going to be in a much better environment. So I recommend if you are out driving to say, hey, listen, I'm just on the road. I've got, you know, in my case, I got my kids in the car. Can I call you back in say an hour, or would 2 hours work better, right? So I don't want to be on the call in my car to deal with an inbound call for a listing at all, or even a buying side, because I'm going to go through, and we'll see this later on, the questions that I want to have asked before I can go into the property so that I'm prepared. So let's imagine we're sitting here at the office, you're at home, or wherever you are. These are two questions that I would say that are almost guaranteed questions you're going to get asked by the seller, prospective seller. Would you agree? Okay, the first one, what do you charge for commission? And then remember, you're sitting at home or you're sitting here in the office. Matt, I'm the seller, you're the realtor. I'm gonna pick on him instead today. Matt, what do you charge for your commission? 2.5%. So he answered over the phone right away, 2.5%. Okay, I like the number 2.5%. If it's just the listing side, right? You know, we're gonna say probably 5% total fee. But here's the problem I have with Matt actually answering that question. Because that might be the first question you're asked, or the second or the third. It's right up there. Would you agree? What problem do you think I have with answering that question over the phone and giving an answer back? Us.
You don't know what.
We haven't discussed anything. Zero. And you've already put a number out there. So you put out 2.5, right? So I know you're saying for the listing side, 2.5. Oh, Matt, that's too much. I had somebody else in here that said they would do it for 1%. Do we have a problem now? Because now I'm having a dialogue with the prospective seller about a fee, and I haven't done anything on the property. Zero research. So how do you slide something like that, slide away from something like that when that question's asked of you? Would you like me to give you another $1 million dialogue? So we already gave you one. What's the first one I gave you? Remember? If I could, would you? Followed by the when would a good time be to meet? Tonight at 7 or tomorrow at 1, right? Here's another one. Very simple. Ready for this one? Gee, I don't know. Gee, I don't know, Matt. I'd have to see your home before we talked about that. When would be a good time for us to get together? With tomorrow at 2 or 7 p.m. work? It's the G, I don't know. Now, Matt was very good in sending you those dialogues a couple days ago or last week. Floyd stuff.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
These dialogues are there. These are not like Kennelly dialogues. These are what I invested back in the 90s in trading with Floyd System. It's the G, I don't know dialogue. Gee, I don't know. What's my home worth? Matt, what's my home worth?
No,
Gee, I don't know.
See them.
How simple is that? Now I'm not arguing and debating and trying to figure out over the phone. I don't know the property address. I don't know the condition. I don't know what the location looks like. Is it on a ravine? I don't know any of these details. I don't know what the urgency is of these people. And I'm already debating and arguing about my commission or what the house is worth. Gee, I don't know. Pretty cool, right? Here's another good dialogue for you. I'm willing to work. When you get into the commission part, now you're maybe at the home. It's called the willing to work dialogue. I'm willing to work for whatever we can agree upon. The important part is what we can agree upon. I'm willing to work with whatever we can agree upon. That means we'd have to agree upon the price. Remember I said before, I go in and my evaluation says the house is worth $2 million, but they want 2.5. Well, we're not agreeing upon that price. So who cares? What commission I charge? I don't have a bona fide listing. You would have to be David Copperfield, the magician, to make that work. I don't even think he could do that. It's not that good. Impossible, right? What if? This is another brilliant dialogue. The what if. It's another one where you can slide. What if you did not sell your home? What would happen? What if your home didn't sell? Because that's going to flush out the people that are just listing to see what their house is worth. They're going to try it. Have you ever heard sellers say that? Just going to give it a shot, see what's happened, what the market's going to say. That a bona fide seller? What if your house didn't sell? Oh, listen, if they just got a job demotion or promotion, or they've got an addition coming to the family, they are retiring, they, well, the list is endless of the motivations of why they're there. What if your home didn't sell? It's gonna suss out their motivation for selling. And it's gonna tell us those people that are just looking, testing the market. You heard that? Just testing the market. Do you want to work with the person that's testing the market? No, I don't think so. When you see what the numbers really are, right? My screen numbers. What if you could not get what you want from your home today? What if? This is one. This is two. What if? Gee, I don't know. And what if? And here's it. What would it take? There's a third one. What would it take? Dot, dot, dot. Matt, what would it take today for you to autograph the paperwork and get your house listed? What would it take? These are closing questions, by the way, just in case you didn't realize that, right? This is probably one of the biggest weaknesses realtors have is they don't close. They talk, and don't close, right? I want you to go talk, close, okay? What would it take, Matt, for you to list with me today?
We would need to agree on an appropriate fee, a good time, and an effective strategy.
Okay. And what does that look like? Tell me more. That's another one. These are all stacking type of closing, by the way, right? Help me more. Okay. What's that? Gee, I don't know. So you're pushing the dialogue to close. Tell me more about what that looks like, because perhaps maybe I missed something in my presentation that was important for him to make that decision, right? What would it take? And I love this one because there are a lot of realtors in my marketplace back in the day use this tagline. What would it take to get you to start packing now? Start packing now. Have you seen that line from some agents got that? What would it take for you to start packing now?
An offer for 100,000 over asking.
Okay, fantastic. I don't have a bona fide listing. Well, I do if the list price is 100,000 below market value. Oh, yeah, right. I love this one here too. I'm not gonna write it on the board, but I will list it at your price if you list it at my fee. I will list it at your price if you will list it at my fee. So it's one of Floyd's 10 dialogues. And I'll give you one more. One more? Okay, I'll give you two more. It's the, that sounds interesting. Share with me more. And the pauses are purposeful. That sounds interesting. Tell me more. Add that one too. Okay. And then the last one. It's called the Ben Franklin close. Everybody know what the Ben Franklin close is? I know, again, I'm off the stuff. I'd rather teach you stuff that are the dialogues, know what to say, how to say it, and when to say it, because this is what the business is really about, right? These are the process things on the book. But what I'm sharing with you is here's on the street where you're going to actually close on contracts, get listings, get buyers, and make money. Okay. What's a Ben Franklin close? Does anybody know what that is? No. So does everybody know who Ben Franklin is? Who's Ben Franklin? He's on the $100 bill in the United States of America. But who is he really, historically speaking? Never. Nope. But close. He was one of the founding fathers on the Declaration of Independence. One of the most brilliant, smart men. He had the experiment with the kites for electricity hit the kite with a key, right? But he was also an ambassador for the United States. And so he had this thing called the Ben Franklin close. It's your pros and your cons. Positive, negative, right? We'll go positive, negative too. They teach the Ben Franklin Closing business school. I've got a master's degree in business and leadership and psychology, right? So they teach this, and this is going through a list with people, the pros and cons of the decision. So I'm pulling out to tell me more. I want to find out what it is that the obstacle is here. Great, Matt. Let's look at that. And then you go to the Ben Franklin Close. Let's look at the positives of this and the negatives of this. Does that make sense? By the way, you hear me say this all the time. Does that make sense? You realize that that's a closing dialogue too? Did you know that? That's a closing dialogue. Because when I hit you with it, does that make sense when I'm teaching or when you're out in the field, go like this. Which you just said yes to me. I want you to say yes. I want you to say no. When I say, does that make sense? And you go like that, I know I got you, right? Does that make sense whenever you're having conversations and you want to finish off that conversation? Does that make sense? All right. So in a pro, we could look at from what I'm going to do as a full service realtor. Okay. Why are you going to select me, Matt? Because maybe your issue was that, I don't think that there's any value in what you're doing versus just putting it on MLS, right? So we could do a pro and con of what that really looks like, because that's where you're going to know your data. If you looked historically at the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, it's not 100% of all listings sell on MLS. I bet you're shocked to hear that, right? It's not 100%. It's less than 70%. Historically speaking, of all listings on TREB have sold. It's actually about 66, 67%, okay, is the number. Which means, call it 33%, 1/3 do not sell, they are failures. On our system, what do we call those? Expired listings. Expired. Show of hands, who includes expired listings in their listing presentations when they go to list a property? 3. Every one of your hands should go up. Who is going to bring expired listings on every listing presentation they're going to ever go on now? Every hand should go up. Why? Why? Yes.
Shows the bad. Shows what went wrong. Or what did
Possibly one more wrong. Exactly. Right? This is the failure. Now, would you agree with me? By the way, this is a closing as well. Would you agree? Let me write that down. Would you agree with me? That's a closing. Would you agree with me that every homeowner, or virtually every homeowner who listed their house, who endured 50 families coming through their house on Saturday and Sunday and evenings after they've worked all day long at work, would you agree with me that they did not list to become an expired listing? It'd be crazy if they did that. Would you agree? So what happened? We're part of the 67%, they're part of the 33% that didn't sell. Well, let's go to the Ben Franklin. Why? Because they were not full service. Maybe. This is discount. So we start building a story about why, right?
That's too high.
Price. Why? Market value maybe. Or aggressive, right? Remember we had the 2 strategies we talked about when we first started? What were they? Traditional and aggressive. This person just put a price because the seller took control and said, yeah, I know what all your data says. It says $2 million, but listen, I built this beautiful shed out in my backyard. My house has got to be $2.5 million. I built it. I just put some shingles on top of that sucker. How much? Because I did that, it's worth 2.5. I don't care what your stuff says, 2 million. I built that. See those box garden things with the strawberries and blueberries? I built those too. My house is worth $2.5 million.
Tell me more about it.
You wouldn't believe. I built them in the summertime. I sweated. So that sweat equity because I'm worth a lot. My house has got to be worth 2.5 million. These are the stories you're getting. I'm sure you've heard these stories, right? If you're gonna let the seller take control and tell that story and tell you what to list the property at, you're gonna be in that sector. By the way, it's lower, like that's the average. That number's a lot. It's below 50, okay? Yeah. Like in a crash mode, we're talking between 20 and 30% of listings will sell. And we've gone through that very recently. I'm just giving you a historical number, okay? We're not there. We're way below that number. Even more critical for you to take control of the listing table. Okay? You had a question? Oh. Yeah, I think we're good. We can move on to back to the sheet, which would be the first one, right? Any questions on some of this stuff, by the way? This one, right? Yeah. Is that helpful? Good. We're gonna go down, scroll down to nope, back up. Back up. Right in here. The step by step.
So right on the screen.
Oh, shoot. Oh,
It's a dry erase marker. It'll come off.
let's see. Oh. That just gave you a heart attack.
You're Jeffrey.
What's that?
You're Jeffrey.
That's right. Yeah. We're buying a new TV. Do I have a napkin? I just want to, sorry about that, guys. That's plus. That is me, though. I am prone to that kind of stuff all the time.
To be fair, you used to use the pen on the screen.
I did. I used to use a pen on the screen.
Until we discovered everyone at home heard screech, 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 screech.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we stopped using the pen.
What's that?
I was saying I used a Sharpie on the whiteboard one time. It didn't come out.
Oh, shoot. Okay, so here's the listing process stuff that you've got in your workbook. When we're talking about going into a listing, one of the questions I want you to be asking, and we're going to go through a slew of them momentarily, but will all what's the fill in the blanks? There's two words. Sorry?
Decision maker.
Perfect. Will all decision makers be there? If you're going to go on a listing presentation, make sure you're going on a bona fide listing presentation, because if you're missing decision makers, you're not on a bona fide listing presentation. And what's going to happen is, if you go and do one of those, in that process of doing your listing presentation, you're relying upon that person to do what?
The work.
Your work in what way? Tell me more.
Convincing to list with you.
Possibly, but more importantly, conveying what to the other party? Your value, your information. So you're going there and you're telling that story of what I'm going to do for you, right? So I'm there with Thomas, and his wife Diana's not there. I know you're not married, but she's not there. I do my full listing presentation with Thomas, and now I hope that Thomas is as effective and as good as I am when Diane comes home tonight from work, and he's going to be able to do what I did with Diane. We don't want that. We want the two of them there together. Okay. Who else could be a decision maker, by the way? So that's a husband and wife scenario. Yeah.
Power of attorney.
Power of attorney. Fantastic. POA. POAs. Okay. Could be an estate sale. So you could have the trustee of an estate that's actually managing that. In which case, why are they a trustee or why are they a POA? Is the person on title maybe not mentally stable enough to sign a valid contract? If you go back to your courses that you took, to have a binding legal agreement, one of the criteria is that you have to be of sane mind, right? And so sometimes POAs or estates are because of those types of scenarios, right? Who else could be?
Parents.
Parents. And parents would be possibly if they were the bank of mom and dad. And so they have, some financial reason to be at the table. And being the bank of mom and dad, some of those scenarios, mom and dad take an equity interest in the property. Could only be maybe 1%. But if that's the case, they need to be there, decision makers. If you don't have them there, you do not have a bona fide listing. Okay. Right. This was kind of neat. This is not my stuff here. Thank you, gift note, and follow up. I didn't have that in my original program, but I used to actually give a gift when I went there. Now, for me, a gift would be flowers. I would come with some flowers. I stayed away from any alcohol. Like I know some people give bottles of wine and things like that, but I stayed away from those types of gifts at a listing or a buying side. It was some flowers. And on the seller side, I had my own tape measure with my logo and name on it. Why? Because I got to measure their house. And here you go. As a memento for measuring your house today, this is yours. So I used to give flowers and a tape measure. Just an idea, right? You choose to. I mean, you can get stickers now to cover over whatever logos are there. 20 years ago, it wasn't as easy to do that kind of stuff, right? So I had to pay a supplier to do that. Today, you can do it no cost. But flowers, now, flowers, you can choose two types. One they can put on their kitchen table or one they can go plant in their garden, right? I put the ones that were kitchen table. Right? Do what you want. It's a good idea. Nice kind of leave behind, right? Bombs. Who does bombs here? Perfect. Bombs are a great way to communicate with people because there's a record of it, right? So when you send it, you get to see them having viewed that. There's a record of that. And some of our realtors, by the way, are using bomb to convey the RICO information guide. That's the mandatory guide, that 12, 13-page document. Some of our realtors are actually sending that beforehand through a bomb or other, electronic mailing services, so that at least they've got it out there and they've got a digital copy of that. To back it up, anytime you're working with buyers, as we talked about last week, and sellers, you're going to need to bring the RICO information guide to the table, okay? Because at any time you're providing an assistance or a service in real estate, that guide has to be provided, right? Doing a buyer presentation interview, the CETO, what's the CETO again stand for? Come into office and you do a listing presentation, bring the guide with you, okay? What else we got? Go to research. Okay, the research is basically, I would call this the pulse of the marketplace right now. The pulse of the market. There's so much noise out there from different sources telling us what the pulse of the market is. Here's my advice to you. You want to be the voice and source of that information, not, call it CBC or some prognosticator expert. You want to be the source and voice. So you need to stay on top of that pulse of what's actually happening. If you have your own dedicated farm area, which I had one as well, you're going to want to know exactly to the micro detail what's happening in that marketplace, including, are there going to be any new upgrades in the city? Is the city coming and doing new sidewalks? Is the city putting a new recreational thing in the area? Are they put, like in my area, my dad had built I live where my parents used to live, in the same neighborhood. My dad 40 years ago started building a hockey arena, outdoor hockey arena. Well, the city of Brampton this year actually went and paved an outdoor arena, paved, like a paved concrete with the cooling pipes, boards, condensers, compressors, so you can skate on that arena year round. Doesn't matter what, not year round, but in winter, even when it's 10 degrees plus like we had last week in the spring, right? So cool. And so as a realtor that worked that marketplace, that's something I'm going to be communicating out there. And I'm probably going to have a Tim Hortons hot chocolate and Timbits afternoon on a Sunday. Come on out and meet your neighbors kind of thing, right? What else you got? Yeah, we talked about impact back in the bottom here. So that's for the impact reports. It's right below there, if you see that. Notoriously inaccurate, as I said. Do not use them unless you're gonna put a disclaimer for what that's all about, okay? I was gonna say something too about commission cutting. Remember I said that it even happened back in my day, in ancient old days. I brought this, I found this one last night too. This is called the Commission Cutting Report. You see the name? Who's that? How fair is that? How fair is that? So I took his courses back in the 90s too. And he wrote this article in either 1999 or 1998. Because I remember when I moved over to LePage, they had access to his training. So there was a full report created about commission cutting. And that's 26, 27 years ago. It's not a new thing. Always been around. I'll see if I can get Matt to scan this and send it out. It's kind of neat. It is dated. I mean, we're talking massively different numbers today, but it's, you know, just to let you know, in 5 years, and in 10 years, and in 20 years, commission cutting is going to be a topic of conversation for you. It's not going away. Okay. Next slide, Matt. I think we can probably scroll through a bunch of stuff here. We just do the pre-list, the box. So some of our realtors create this thing called a box. Have you guys heard about this and seen this? Not a bad idea. I mean, it comes at a cost, and it's a little kind of box where they'll put in maybe they'll put in their listing presentation. They might put in a, pardon me, chocolate, you know, their tape measure thing, but it is a little box. It's a little giveaway box for the client, right? And so they will have they could have their pre-listing package in there as well. It talks about what goes in a pre-list guide. So I sent around my little guide, which was a pre-listing version. You've sent that out to everybody as well at large, right?
I'll double check.
Okay. Okay. You can go next screen if you want. Where are we here? What's that? Why? Step 4. It's the next. This one. Let's go to an option 1, the marketing strategically.
That's the middle of the screen.
Middle one. Okay. So this is price sharply, minimum 20% down payment. This is the aggressive styling of listing, which we see a lot of today. And I'm a big advocate today of using that strategy as opposed to traditional, because you want to set yourself apart. Now, the problem is you've got this coordinate. So there's this chart that looks like something like that. Time, price, and activity, okay? So this is time and price. Initially out of the gate, you're gonna maximize your price and your time on the selling for any kind of listing you've got, okay? It's not in your workbook, it's just something, I've actually got that right here. There. Got a version of it right there. What happens is that when your listing comes to market, it's the brand new shiny ball. And everybody's looking at the brand new shiny ball. In about 15 to 20 days, though, it loses a lot of its luster. And so there's this trailing down activity and trailing down in the price you're going to get from the time. So you're going to maximize it, like call us the first 10 to 15 days. Is where you're going to capitalize there. Then it's a descending chart where you're going to get less and less value. Because what happens at, say, day 23, you're out showing the property, you've got a buyer in your lap, you're on the buying side, and you provide them the listing sheet, the MLS sheet, and they look at it and they see that it's been on the market for 23 days. What's a question they're going to ask you? Pardon me? Yeah, they're going to ask you, what's wrong? What's wrong with the house? Has anybody ever been asked that question for, I call it a stale listing? What's wrong with the house? what's the answer that you're gonna give? Gee, I don't know. You have to look at the property. But in the back of your mind, I can guarantee you know what the reason is. They listed too high. They inverted that. They went high price and the time is gonna be, so this is inverted to that. That's what's wrong with the property. They didn't properly price it. So when you go with this price sharply scenario, think of the price sharply as a flyer that you receive every week. I'm a Canadian Tire nerd. I love Canadian Tire flyers. I don't know if anybody in the room shares that affinity to Canadian Tire flyers or Home Depot or, you know, Lowe's is no longer. I'm disappointed in that, but I think they're part of like the other chain now. Rona, thank you. But I eagerly await my flyer every Friday from Canadian Tire and Home Depot. And, you know, I may not be interested today in going and buying a snow blower because I haven't needed one this year. But if I see a front page ad on the Canadian Tire that says that there's a 40% off sale, I might be thinking about going and looking at it. I was dabbling, you know, curiosity. I see 40% off or 50% off. That might encourage me to go into Canadian Tire to have a look at that. That psychology is what's happening here when you're pricing sharply. You have $1 million house and you're listing it as a marketing strategy. This is the key. I know you're going to say it's hard for me to convince the seller to list for 20 or 30%. We have realtors doing it for 30% less right now. Seller's never going to go for it. They don't want to sell it for that low. Here's the reality. They're not selling it for that low. This is the marketing strategy to get as many eyeballs looking at that listing and as many people with foot traffic to go and look at the property. It's the same psychology. So when you are having that conversation with sellers who are pushing back on an aggressive, sharp type of strategy, you may want to bring a flyer or two that you got that week from Canadian Tire or from, maybe it's Pizza has a wicked sale on this week. I don't know, like they always have their lost leader, they call it in marketing. You ever heard the term lost leader? That's to draw you in. Listen, this is drawing you in to buy the pizza. This is drawing you in to buy the snowblower. Costco, yeah, exactly. Costco, right? Or I like M&Ms too, right? I like the M&Ms flavor. Don't know why. Because I get my ketchup, mustard, and relish from there. No, I'm joking. For those of you who haven't seen that. So when you're having that dialogue with the seller, this is the way you're going to help them understand why we're pricing it at a sharp discount, right? But you don't have to accept that. It's purely a marketing strategy. Okay. What else we got there, Matt?
Next page.
Oh, no. I think we're still off. Yeah, they got, I better put that there because I know I'm going to run. Bully offers. Does anybody know what the actual real term for that is? Preemptive. It's a preemptive. Okay. So a preemptive offer or a bully offer occurs in this situation where we have a delayed offer date. We need a form to be able to do a delayed offer date. Does anybody offhand know what the AREA form for that is? No? 244 is the form. That's your instructions to be able to have a delayed offer, okay?
Is that what direction re-offers?
Correct. That's right. Do you have it in your system? Right, pull it up if you want to show it to them. See if I'm correct. See if it really is 244. I have about 1,000 of the numbers in my head. Anyhow, you are now with the seller agreeing to postpone offers because part of our requirement under the act is to show offers or convey offers. This is actually a word. It's not present, it's convey. Our act uses that word, convey. And if you look at the definition in the dictionary about what convey means, convey doesn't mean I have to be in person. I don't have to be face to face. How else can I convey an offer? Phone, email. Can I verbally convey an offer? I got I got this, and I got, yeah. So yes, you can verbally convey an offer. You're not accepting it verbally, you're not negotiating it verbally, but you're conveying it over the phone. Because here's the thing, with a preemptive offer, if you're gonna go and work with a preemptive offer, you have to do a whole bunch of things. You have to go into the MLS and remove any language about the postponement date. So we're Friday today, let's say it's next Wednesday. You gotta take that out. Then you have to, in writing, communicate with every realtor that showed the property, that you're changing the strategy. You have to, in writing, communicate with anybody that's booked to show the property. And you have to, in writing, contact anybody that's called you, realtor or consumer, that's expressed interest in the property. And that could be people that you've done an open house, you did an open house and a whole bunch of people came in. If you're changing it from, we're looking at a preemptive, those three categories have to be fulfilled. Because the reality is, this is a $5,000 to $10,000 fine at RICO for not doing those things if you go and do a preemptive and have not done all those changes. You had a question?
So I've seen listings that have like Tuesday is the offer date, but the seller is willing to take preemptive offers at the same time as that.
So the language usually you see is the seller reserves the right to
Yeah.
accept a preemptive offer. If he hasn't done all those things I just discussed,
That's right. It's just that.
the realtor is not at liberty to be off the hook for the regulatory requirement. You cannot contract yourself as a registrant out of your legal obligations under our act. So yeah, the seller can go and accept all that. Great, because he's not a registrant or she's not a registrant, but you are. So you have to follow your protocol. So if that's the case, now there's, yeah,
Even if it was day one of that listing, put that part in the remarks. So it's gonna do all those steps.
yeah. So if it's day one and it's the first person that showed it, well, you don't have anybody that you have to contact, but you can change it all in Broker Bay. So Broker Bay is a very, great asset that we have, a tool to do these communications. Before we had that, you're picking the phone up and calling people and emailing them to say that you're changing that. And we had situations here back before Broker Bay where we were calling 80 to 100 people. And that's a requirement because in that group, there could have been somebody that was just waiting for the preemptive date. And that's not good for your seller because that person get that phone call, the email, they're now competing because the preemptive doesn't want to compete. They're trying to get this thing without having competition. So, okay, here's a question for you. I'm the bully, I'm the preemptive, and Matt's the listing. I send Matt the offer. Does Matt have to, because I sent the offer, does he have to now do all these things, change the system and all that stuff? You're shaking out. Why is the answer no?
He has not conveyed it to the seller yet.
So we haven't conveyed to the seller, and the seller ultimately gets to make a decision with your assistance, your expertise. And what would that decision be? Yes or no, I guess, right? We're going to go forward with this preemptive or we're not. Because if we're going to go forward, again, we've got to do all these things I talked about. So to me, a preemptive offer has to be, and here's the big word for you, compelling. That's not a compelling enough offer for you and the seller to change your strategy. You've done your convey. Matt calls me back. This is great, Mike. Thanks for sending the preemptive, but the seller is continuing along in his marketing strategy. We're not going to be working with your preemptive offer. Does everybody understand that? And does that make sense? Because it's a very small nuance, but it's very important. Just because you get a preemptive doesn't mean you have to go do all these things. You sit down with your seller and have the conversation to understand, is this compelling enough for us to change everything midstream and work with this offer? So I'm listed at $1 million. I'm anticipating getting 1.2, right? Because we're 20% below. And this offers at 975 with a condition on building inspection, condition on financing. Is that compelling enough for you to go and change everything? Probably not. Thank you very much, Mike, for your preemptive offer. We're sticking to our current strategy. Hope to see you next week, something like that, right? Communication for that. So just very important on bully offers. I think you can go to the next slide, man. What's our next slide? What happens if it doesn't sell? Happens if it doesn't sell. What number is that?
I'll have a number.
I don't think I got that. Okay, I don't have that. It's on my book. Go back there, but we'll talk, I'll just do it quickly. What happens if it doesn't sell? Reset. You're back to the blackboard. What? Yes.
Question for you. In terms of the bully offer accepted.
Yeah.
What would you recommend? Would it have to be totally firm? Just what if it's possible through?
Oh, that's not compelling enough for me and my seller to take that risk, to go and accept a conditional offer when we're set up for a, you know, multiple offer situation and delayed offer. So yeah, I would be insistent upon, you know, so maybe the price is pretty close, right? In the preemptive, or the price is better than what we were anticipating, but they got a building inspection. So listen, Matt, loved your offer. You know, we're not prepared to work with it because you've got inspection, but here's what I would recommend. Why don't you have your buyers go do a building inspection now? And if your building inspection works out, resubmit a preemptive offer and we'll definitely work with it. We'll change the system, okay? Because I don't want to then take my property off the market. Remember, time and price initially, the first 10 to 15 days, that's where you're going to maximize everything. If he takes my property off the market for 2 or 3 days, right in the middle of my sweet spot, I've just lost a lot of time on market. And nobody's even going to know that that happened, right? Unless they go look at the history, right? It's again, going back to what's wrong with the property? How come it didn't work? So the compelling aspect's got to be really there. So we're going to hit reset. Next is the buy, sell first. I'll say, can we, this is always the, is this the chicken or the egg? What came first, the chicken or the egg? Do we know? The mystery, right? Buy first, sell first. It's a mystery. But if we're going to go down that road, can we get some bridge financing to help us? Buy first, sell first. Alternative, call it accommodations. If we're to buy first, sell first, buy first, can we find a place to put a roof over our head? Can we get some financing? So if we buy first and not sell first, we need the equity for the buy. Are we able to get some money to bridge that buy when our property hasn't closed? Right?
What's the next one?
We're selling our house, but we bought first because this was just a compelling, you know, dream buy for us. But we haven't sold our house hasn't closed yet. Do we have an option to get bridge financing to be able to do that? Does everyone know how bridge financing works? What's the biggest criteria to get bridge financing from the lender? Firm offer. So I've listed the house we bought. So this is the buy first, sell second. I need a firm offer on my house, the sell side, to be able to qualify for bridge financing, okay? If I don't have a firm offer, I can't get bridge financing. So I can't provide a solution to that scenario, okay? I sell first and I buy later. Well, what happens in the marketplace if we invert? Where we're in a seller's market and there's no inventory, but I've now sold my house. Where do I go? Have we experienced that recently? So we've experienced, you know, in the last couple of years, every part of our market, like 360 of everything. And believe me, if we have a very robust spring market, we could be back in those scenarios where we sell, maybe that's the advice we're giving right now. And then when we're out looking next month, or actually this month is March and April and May, And now we're having problems finding the purchase. Where are they gonna go? Do you have space in your basement for them? Do you want them in your basement? Right? So, you know, we talked about some of those providers. Remember I said the hotel. How about an Airbnb provider, a couple that you know that are really good, that are options for you to recommend these sellers who now have to find a place can go have a place. Okay. I can go to that slide. Come on. I think that should be number 5. So I want you to pull up my fee model. You could. This was my fee model in my listing presentation that I used to use. I think you sent that this morning too, did you? Or maybe not.
The fee model, I did not.
Okay, so Matt will take a screenshot of it or do whatever he needs to do and get you a copy of this. Okay, can you make that a little bit bigger?
No, it's a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. So as we agreed, commission's always going to be a conversation at any listing that you're ever going to go to. So if that's the case, you know, you can go in every time and reinvent the wheel in your conversations and your commission objection handling dialogues, or you can create a platform like this. So I decided to create a platform like this, which was, here are my options. Here's my packages, basically. And for me, it worked very well because I was trading in the minor sport community up in Brampton. And so people knew who I was in the hockey and the baseball world. And people were talking amongst themselves when I wasn't around in a hockey arena or in a baseball line, talking about, you know, Mike did this, Mike did that. And so for my fee series,
I was just trying to make it bigger and I failed miserably.
okay.
I gotta go back.
Now, again, just to put this in perspective, you'll see, you know, it's 6%, right? 5.5 and 5 deluxe, premium, and economy. I didn't say cheap, discount. I used economy. Remember, that's one of those words. And what was important for me was to have a stable situation every time I went out, because I didn't want to be, as I said, reinventing the wheel every time I went and took a listing presentation. Because here's the worst thing that could happen. I could go to Matt and Matt, oh, should I get the black marker?
Sure, if you want.
Where's the, oh, I can't write on this.
Yeah, you can double tap again.
Okay. So I go to Matt and I'm able to negotiate 6% because Matt wanted, and this is just a sample. I've had people come back and go, well, I would do more than these. Of course you're going to do more. There should be a list of like 100, 200 things you're going to do on a deluxe plan like that, right? 300 things. Matt has agreed with me, we're going to do 6% because I'm going to invest all these resources into getting the house sold, blah, blah, blah. Then I go and Thomas chooses the premium plan at 5.5. And then Diana, she chooses the 5%. So we have 3 different listings that I've taken at 3 different price points. If I don't have a system like this in place to justify why you're at 6, you're at 5.5, and you're at 5, and you find out, or so you find out that I've charged Diana 5% and you 6%, if we don't have a fee plan of why we've done that, do you feel a little bit ticked off about that? Do you think that I took advantage of you or I ripped you off? Why am I paying 6 and you're only paying 5? Because I haven't justified why I charged you 6 and you 5. Now remember, you're a parent of a hockey kid I'm coaching, and so are you. And you guys connect behind the scenes and I'm not there. Not there to actually have a conversation. So you guys are talking about me when I can't defend myself. And if I don't have a fee-based system, you can start thinking, Matt and Thomas, right? Because you're at 5.5. So maybe the 3 you're talking now. And all of a sudden you feel good because you were able to negotiate Mike down to 5. But you feel ticked off and you're really ticked off because you paid an extra half point and you paid an extra full point. I changed the scenario on that for me because I didn't want those conversations to happen. So when you selected, and we selected together 6 and we selected 5.5, we did it based upon my value proposition and my services. Does that make sense to everybody? What a great way for you to build your platform. If you thought about that before and great, big scheme, well, now you can see it does work. And did this happen to me in my career, in my business? Absolutely, because sometimes Matt would forget that when we selected 6%, we selected because I did all these things. Right? Matt forgot about that. And I literally got a call one time from a guy like Matt that was in a hockey arena talking to Diana and Tom. And he got mad. And I was able to remind Matt, hey, listen, Matt, we were, when we listed your house, we had these 3 packages, deluxe, premium, and economy. And we selected a deluxe because you wanted everything. You didn't want to leave anything to chance to sell your house. Because if we're just going to list it and let MLS take control, we only have a 67% chance on average to sell it. And in today's market, it's 45%. So we selected the deluxe. You remember that? Oh yeah, that's right. So I actually legitimately received a call like that. Being able to outsource it to what we agreed upon in a fee-based model preserved the relationship. Because if I didn't have that, Matt's going to go around telling everybody what a jerk I am. I took advantage of you. How could I have not? Because I gave Diana 5 and I gave Thomas 5.5. So to prevent those kind of conversations that can occur behind the scenes in your relationship style databases, this is a solution for you. Do you have to do the solution? No, but it's an idea for you. Start building your business going forward like that. Make sense? Any questions on that? Again, this is a very basic, this is not my actual, this is a snapshot because I would literally have hundreds of things in the deluxe column. Why? I want them to pick the deluxe column or choose with me the deluxe column because it's going to eliminate a lot of the variables of me not getting their home sold. Okay. We can go to the seller questionnaire stuff. And I'm just going to zip through this. What time are we?
Half an hour, 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay. So we're going to zip through some stuff here. So let's go back to it's called seller questionnaire. So this is something why I said earlier, you want to be at home or in the office when you're getting the call to go to do a listing presentation. Okay. You don't want to be driving in your car because you're not going to be able to execute on these types of questions. So yeah, it should be the seller questionnaire. So it's the one that's right after the page you were just on. It was page 5.
I got you. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. So the dialogue at the top, so if you want to write this at the top of where it says seller questionnaire, say this: to help me better prepare for our interview and maximize our time together, I have a few items to ask. So we'll say it a couple of times for it. To help me better prepare for our interview and maximize our time, I have a few items to ask. Okay. To help me better prepare for our interview and maximize our time, I have a few items to ask. Okay. We're all good. If you missed it, just go back to watch the recording. So number 1, tell me about your home. I want to know what kind of home do they have? Detached. Maybe I've never seen the home, basically, right? If they're a past client, yes, I know the home I have. Personally, I can tell you, driving through neighborhoods in Brampton, what homes I sold, exactly what I sold before. I've set that photographic memory for it. But what kind of home is it? Detached, 4 bedrooms, on a ravine, double car garage, it's double wide, it's huge lot, whatever. Tell me about your home. Okay. So you write those in the column there, right? So in the number 1, tell me about your home. Because these are the questions I want you to ask. How long have you been there? All right. So I want you to think about the time. Oh. These are the 2 categories I want you to burn into your brain. If the answer is, I've been there for 1 to 5 years, what should you automatically be thinking? That's a motivation question, sure. but I'm thinking it from more along a financial. Yeah, you said the mortgage thing. Okay. So if you're 1 to 5 years you purchased, maybe the 4 to 5, not so much jeopardy on average. But I'm concerned if you bought within the last 1 to 5 years because of how the market's gyrated. Okay. Meaning, is there going to be any equity in the property? We have a thing that we can do called a mortgage verification. Now, back in the day, we had a form for that. The seller would sign it, give me permission to go to their lender. Back then, it was mostly all the big banks. So you'd go to the branch and the lender, RBC, TD, CIBC, would provide you with the most recent mortgage statement. House is worth 500,000 and they owe 230. It's $270,000 in equity. That's a good scenario. Today, they bought for $1.5 million 2 years ago. What's the house worth today? If it's gone down 15%, oh, say 10%. It's down 150 grand. Is there any equity in the property to pay your fee? Maybe not. And more importantly, what we forget about is when we put a property on MLS, that's a binding contract from you and the brokerage to pay 2.5% of property brokerage. We forget about that. So if we don't do our due diligence in the upfront, 1 to 5 years, they bought 1 to 5 years. If we don't look behind the scenes to find out what's that financial picture, when we put it on MLS and there is no equity, now we got a problem. How do we pay the other brokerage? That could be coming out of your pocket. Okay. They buy 5+ years. They should be insulated because there should be some equity growth, but maybe there's not either. So is it not a good, business practice to still do a mortgage verification? Maybe they've used their home like an ATM machine because they have a HELOC. And so they've gone and they've tapped their home equity line of credit. That's what the HELOC stands for, home equity line of credit. Again, we want to find out, what are we sitting on in equity? Okay. Why do you want to move? This is the motivation question. Are they retiring? Put that down. Yeah.
Is there like a way of doing a mortgage verification nowadays without just taking the word for it?
Have them log on to their,
Oh, and then show it to you that way.
take screenshots.
I know in Rome you can check it out to see if there's a mortgage on it or not, but I don't see.
It's not going to tell you, it's not going to give you the information you need, right? I'm just giving you, a little bit of insight, because I went through the market, so the market crashed in late 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95. Like it crashed for years. The most dramatic part of it, though, was in 89, 90, 91, so before I got into real estate. When I did get it, there were still properties that were underwater in equity, right? And so we were doing mortgage verifications on every property. Power sales were a big element of our marketplace back in those days, right? People just handed their keys over. I got $300,000 owing in a mortgage and the house is worth 150. Take it. I don't want it. Now, shockingly, that $150,000, 1.2 million today. So it recovered. It took decades to do that. But at that micro moment of time, as people are experiencing right now with the high rate of inflation and just the cost of everything, some people are paying Paul, taking from Peter to pay Paul, basically, that expression, right? And they're just delaying an inevitable scenario. That's why, part of my prayers every day is that Tiff Macklin at the Bank of Canada lowers the interest rates, because all of that embedded inflation, the vast majority of why it's sitting where it is in the mortgage side of the inflation equation. Bring them down, all those variable rate mortgage holders are going to be able to now make their payments, right? I told you before, I'm a fixed guy. I don't do variable. So to me, I'm insulated to that. But I was the I'm not the norm when it comes to that. And so people that are hemorrhaging right now are hemorrhaging because the rates are too high. We've got to get them down. Get them down. I think we avoid the Titanic hitting the iceberg here because we don't got much more runway because people are tapping HELOCs. That's why I do the mortgage verification, see where they're at. Even people that were, prudent fiscally are underwater because of this. Not good. Why do you want to move? Maybe it's a job loss. Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe it's a family growth situation. We want to know what we're doing. Number 4, when do you need to move by? This indicates their urgency, the time urgency. So if they say, well, I got to be moved by 120 days because I'm getting a new job, or my wife's going to be due in 6 months. So 120 days gets us to settle in 2 months before she gives birth. Okay, so we got 120 days. You got to, it sounds like a long time, 120 days, but it's not. We got to put you on the marketplace. We got to do our marketing. We either go aggressive or traditional. So we're, 10 days aggressive, traditional could be 30 days. So take 30 out of 120, we're down to 90. We find the right buyer. Is that right buyer going to move in exactly when we want them to? Maybe they want to be 60, 90, 120, 180 days. We don't know. So I want to move 120 days from now. Well, that's an urgent time. We better get to work right now because of this. You share with them what the reality looks like in the time aspect. Make sense? Okay. Number 5, Matt, go up to the other one. What improvements have you made to your house? There. So having just gone through a full scale, top to bottom, home renovation of my house 2 years ago, I can tell you that kitchens and bathrooms are where you want to spend your money because they are the highest rate of return. Now, I did a full-on renovation, so I went a little overboard. Happy wife, happy life. Actually, happy daughter too, because my daughter and my wife did all the design, all themselves, and they did a fantastic job. So you're gonna want to have them describe their house to you. Have you just done a major renovation? Have you done a kitchen, bathroom renovation? Have you just freshly painted? Have you done new flooring? Have you done new landscaping? Put a new deck in? Whatever it is, right? What are these features that they've done? I want to draw big time though to your attention this one thing. That could be 5 things, at least 5 things. Furnace. Air, hot water, solar, water softener. There's a few others, but those are the big 5. Does anybody know what I'm alluding to when I put these 5 things? Yes? Contract. So in March 2018, the provincial government of Ontario, so what it says there is furnace, air conditioner, hot water tank, solar, and water softener. Awesome. The provincial government under Doug Ford actually outlawed these predatory contracts in March of 2018. Sadly, there's still some that engage in doing this. This is knocking door to door and selling on a leased type of contract, a new furnace, new air conditioning, hot water tank, solar panel, water softener. Those are the big 5. Okay. They are illegal, but you're gonna run across these things because they're still doing it. And if they did them 10 years ago when it's still legal, they're gonna still deal with them because these leases were for 10 to 50 to 20 to 25 years. Here's what happens when a homeowner engages in one of these contracts. The provider comes in, they sign a contract for this lease, for this rental, right? So what's a standard furnace today cost? $3,000 for an average, like a 2,000 square foot house. Can you get it for $3,000, $4,000, something like that? Okay. So maybe the homeowner doesn't have $3,000, $4,000 out of pocket to pay for that. So they get hooked into these types of things. listen, we're gonna come in and it's only gonna be $50 a month. That's $600 a year. And the contract's for 20 years. So your $3,000, $4,000 furnace is actually how much over the course? $12,000, 4 times. Okay. Now, these predators usually are doing air conditioning at the same time. They're doing some other water softener or hot water, right? So we're talking about situations that could be 30, 40, 50. The worst we've seen here in the brokerage is $120,000 because it was all buy. And it's the solar was the big one. Now here's what happens. Has anybody ever heard of the term NOSI? N-O-S-I. Okay, write this down and get very familiar with this term. It's called a notice of security interest. You might know it by another word, a lien, or a caution on title. But the actual technical term is notice of security interest. So that provider of that appliance places that on your property. It's a NOSI. Cost them $100 to do it. You cannot sell your house and change title when you have one of those on. It's a cloud on title. Remember, when you change title, it's got to be free and clear. It's not free and clear with a NOSI. These NOSIs are hanging around on a lot of properties you guys are out there going and trying to list. We run into it almost on a weekly basis now at the brokerage. You need to find out. Now you ask the questions. Sadly, a lot of the homeowners that are trapped here are elderly people with some dementia sometimes. They don't even know what they've signed. So one of the only ways you can find out about that if they don't know themselves or they don't tell you, right, is to have title search. Because what's going to happen in our title search clauses we have in our agreements, what do we usually put out there, like 10 days before or 14 days before we have title search? So that gives you 10 or 14 days, or gives the lawyers 10 or 14 days to try to rectify this scenario. Imagine when this happens, and it's so sad. Imagine when they pull title and they find out that there's a $23,000 NOSI there, meaning homeowner sells it, that's the cost for them to discharge that NOSI, 23,000, 12,000. As I said, we had 120,000. Now a homeowner who's guaranteed to transfer title free of liens and encumbrances as an encumbrance, it's going to cost them whatever. You got to be very careful and mindful. Please, please, please. Yes.
So when you find out that example of 120,000, that's 120,000 NOSI to basically pay it out.
In that case, the seller had to pay that out of the proceeds of their sale. 120,000. It was all 5 of them. The big part of it was this. It was a solar array panel system on the roof. Right. That was the big ticket of the 120. But I kid you not, if you're out there and you become a listing machine, because the old saying in real estate is list to last. So really what you need to do, your listing is the inventory of your store. If you run a grocery store, if you run the Canadian Tire store, if you run a jewelry store, and if you don't have any jewelry in your cases, you don't have any food on your shelves, you don't have any snow blowers in your aisles, they're not coming back. Your listing is your lasting. It's why people come back to you, okay? If you become a listing machine, are you okay? Oh. If you are a listing machine, you are going to inevitably bang into this stuff and you need to be prepared because you don't want to get caught off guard. Because in these acrimonious type situations, guess who they like to blame? You guys. Because we have insurance, right? So they think that we're going to be the ones that are going to save the day. Okay. Next one here is be careful about this other thing in this section. Be careful about the new section of TRESA 22.12. 22.12 there. This is the new part of the act that talks about latent defects, where we need to disclose latent defects if we're aware of them, or from a listing perspective. As the homeowner, if they've concealed a latent defect, it's not good. We're not aware of them concealing that. So let's say they've hidden a major crack behind something, then we don't know about it. But we have to do the due diligence to ask about it because it's now our requirement to be able to provide that disclosure. It's a latent defect. AREA will be coming out with 298 and 299 as new forms that are going to be able to be used for us to document and capture that. Because you will be dragged into situations, legal situations, if we're not disclosing latent defects that we're aware of, okay? Yes. What's one? Okay, let's go really quick. Number 6, do you have an idea of what your home is worth? That's planning the strategy around that to get that done. Number 7, what are the most appealing features of your home? I used to give a top 10 list. It might be in my pre-listing. In fact, you saw that, right? Top 10 things they like about the house. Location, size, proximity to what? Schools, to their work, to recreation. What are those top 10? Because those top 10 things they liked about their house, chances are a buyer's going to like that as well. Number 8, what first attracted you about this neighborhood? Maybe it was a school. My wife and daughter love shopping, recreation. I like the size of my house. It was big, it was small. I like the lot. I like the commuting aspect of where my house was to where I work, right? Where would you like to move to and why? That gives you, another motivation. Well, I got to move to a retirement home, or I want to move to the country now. I want to have a horse, blah, 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 right? Number 10, do you have a price range in mind? So this is the question you ask them to see where their finger is on the pulse. Do you have a price in mind of what your house would sell for? Well, you're going to see whether they're way above what the market is or way below. If they're way below, you have a great story when you walk into the house to tell them. If they're way high, you got a bit of a work in front of you to try to get them to be more reasonable. Financing. Well, what kind of financing do they have? Do they have the portability aspect of their mortgage? Can they take their mortgage to the new place? What's the discharge of a mortgage? They have 3 years remaining. And we know about the interest rate differentials where the banks will hit them with 3 months of interest to break that mortgage. These are all you doing due diligence uncovering stuff. Number 11, buy first. So you got the option. We talked about this before. Airbnb, and you put them somewhere. Is there a family, a hotel, bridge financing, bank of mom and dad? Those are solutions there. What was your experience with your last realtor? This is in your book. I never asked that question. I didn't want to know that. I don't want them to go, oh yeah, remember I did a survey where like 36, 39% of people couldn't remember their realtor after 2 years. I don't want to trigger them to remember their realtor. I don't ask that question. Okay, so the next stuff, listing present, go all fast through that, Matt, and go to the strategy 1, planning market value 1, okay? It's this one. Yeah, it's very quick slides here. It'll take me 2 minutes.
I think it's this one, right?
Yes. So we got strategic pricing strategies. We got 2 of them. Remember, aggressive, and we got traditional. So there's the pricing at market value of your traditional. Okay. Keep going. Strategies holdback offers. This is where you could get preemptives. This is delaying the offer. OREA form 244. Keep going. Keep going.
But this was an emailed attachment, not in these handouts.
Yeah, just keep going through all those. Yep, staging and prep. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, we'll go back to that pre-home inspection. This is a hold the phone kind of scenario right now as we work through 22.21 with the latent defects about what we're looking at doing and recommending or not recommending with pre-home inspections, because there could be some liability with doing pre-inspections now, okay? For the seller, where an inspector finds a latent defect that the seller didn't know about, right? So there's an issue there, okay? Stay tuned is what I'll say. We're gonna get better information for you. Status certificate, right? That's a snapshot of the property, professional photography, keep going. Matterport stuff, good, go. Yeah, just go right through the end. We don't need to see. And you got that as a handout. There you go. Keep going. We talked about all that. Look at that. Closing cost stuff, yep. That's in the electronic handout you guys should have, okay? Are you ready to get started? That should be it.
That's the end of that.
Okay, so I hope today was beneficial. Again, I go off of the material. I give you what I think you need to hear. What to say, how to say it, and when to say it. Give you some of these $1 million type of dialogues. These dialogues are only going to be effective if you practice them. Don't take what I've given you. You've written it down once and try that on somebody in a real life situation. You have friends here in the room. You have friends out in the office. Practice with them. Or I used to phone my phone and I would leave a message of a dialogue on my phone and play it back and see how I sounded. We hate the way we sound, by the way, and we hate the way we look. But okay, this is how God created us. You ain't changing it. So work on it, see how you are effective with that. I'm going to finish with one last thing. Remember I read the poem, but it was a very abbreviated, butchered version of Dennis Waitley's Living on the Sunday Isle. I found the actual full poem here. I want to read it to you. It's very powerful. Remember that from the first class? Yeah. Remember Dennis Waitley, who he is? Yeah. Another one of my mentors that is amazing. Okay. Living on Someday Isle. There is an island fantasy a someday isle will never see. When recession stops, inflation ceases, our mortgage is paid, our pay increases. That someday isle where problems end, where every piece of mail is from a friend, where the children are sweet and already grown, where all the nations can go it alone, where we all retire at 41. Missed that one. I got this when I was 29, by the way, so I thought I was going to retire from that. Playing backgammon in the island sun. Most unhappy people look to tomorrow to erase this day's hardship and sorrow. They put happiness on layaway and struggle through a blue today. But happiness cannot be sought. It can't be earned. It can't be bought. Life's most important revelation is that the journey means more than the destination. Happiness is where you are right now, pushing a pencil or pushing a plow, going to school or standing in line, watching and waiting or tasting the wine. If you live in the past, you become senile. If you live in the future, you're on Someday Isle. The fear of results is procrastination. The joy of today is a celebration. You can save, you can slave, trudging mile after mile, but you'll never set foot on your Someday Isle. When you've paid all your dues and put in your time, out of nowhere comes another Mount Everest to climb. From this day forward, make it your vow. Take Someday Isle and make it your now. Amazing poem, right? I love it. I found that 1998, July 21st on my birthday. I was Googling back in those days. We had Google too. And I found that poem. And when I found it, then I seeked him out and I took his program when it came to Canada. It was called The Winner's Edge because it just that poem resonated with me. What I'll do is I'll get a copy through Matt so you guys can have it. It's a brilliant, from one of the top psychologists in the world. Okay. So we're halfway done. I'm actually more than halfway because Emilio is going to teach you the last course. So I have 2 more with you. Next week's going to be a more abbreviated one. I'm coming back from Ottawa, so I'm going to be a little bit shortened next week, and then I'll have you the week after. And then March 22nd, we finish off with Emilio. So hopefully you guys have, learned a few things today. Remember about those thoughts. You have 60,000 thoughts a day. So hopefully I threw a couple thousand at you today that seed into you and you make those changes for the betterment of your life professionally and personally. Okay. So we'll see you guys all next week and have a great week. All right.